The Three-Body Problem 3. The End of Death begins by narrating two events from the past. Past Event 1. The Fall of Constantinople. In the Eurasian continent in the year 1453, Turkish projectiles were devouring the fortified walls of Constantinople. The sound of the shots sang the final movement of the Roman Empire. Constantine XI, who was in a desperate situation, received a visitor who was expected to change the course of the battle, Diarina. She claimed to possess the magic to assassinate the leader of the enemy army. The witch Diarina produced a chalice made of pure gold. It is a sacred object that had been sealed in an underground chamber for over 900 years. The witch claimed that when she took the Holy Grail, she also placed a cluster of fresh grapes in the secret room to demonstrate her magical power. She has the ability to freely enter any enclosed space in this world. To test this magical power, Diarina was ordered to take the head of a sturdy prisoner in the heavily guarded dungeon, and she successfully completed the challenge. When Diarina returned to the palace with a bloodless sheepskin bag in her hand, everyone was astonished to discover it. What she pulled out was not a human head, but an intact brain. At that moment, in the dungeon where not even a mosquito could fly, only the untouched corpse of a prisoner of war remained. Diarina tore the brain out of a soldier in the dungeon like a mushroom from the ground. Having proven her ability, Diarina went to a ruined tower with her long-for desire to attain saintly status, to fulfill the mission of assassinating the leader of the enemy army. This time, however, she failed. When the pursuers reached the miraculously restored tower, they found Diarina, who had failed in her mission, and stabbed her in the corner. Before dying, her eyes seemed filled with longing for another vast world and fear of the claustrophobic world before her. At the same time, an era of magic came to an end. It was a brief moment when a fragment of high-dimensional space made contact with the Earth for the first time. It lasted only 25 days and 5 hours. During this period, a prostitute, as a human being who had traversed high-dimensional space-time and returned to low-dimensional space, took a holy grail, left a cluster of grapes, and tore out a human brain. Since then, the human world has returned to normalcy. Past Event 2. Yang Dong's Concerns. At the beginning of the first part of the novel, physicist Yang Dong, who later committed suicide, had an experience before her death. She learned that human physics was being blocked by sophons through his mother's hard drive. At the same time, she also knew the identity of her mother, the leader of the ETO. Yang Dong, who had lost her belief in survival, arrived at the laboratory where she used to work and, guided by a scientist, saw a computer model simulating the Earth's ecological environment. She was surprised to discover that when the initial configuration of the Earth model lacked life, without the functions of animals, plants, and bacteria, the current atmospheric environment would not exist. Therefore, there would be no oceans or rivers on Earth, and it would become a dry and yellow world. Through this model, Yang Dong feels the impact of life on the world. She then pondered how much influence thousands of civilizations had on the universe. One of the protagonists in the Three-Body Problem 3, The End of Death, is Yun Tianming. In the early years of the Crisis era, people at that time had mixed feelings. The news that aliens would invade Earth in 400 years was fresh, terrifying, and exciting, and the media was overwhelming with coverage of it. But in the eyes of the protagonist, Yun Tianming, it didn't matter much that the Trisolarans would invade Earth in 400 years because, with his health condition, he didn't have to worry about the affairs of the next year. His sister always wants him to die soon. At that time, the treatment for terminal illnesses was a bottomless pit of money to spend. For his older sister, who has a family and hasn't yet bought a house, her younger brother, Yun Tianming, dying early means she can still receive a large inheritance from their father. Yun Tianming learned about the approval of the euthanasia law and decided to undergo euthanasia. At that moment, an entrepreneurial classmate who was inspired by Yun Tianming's idea and started a certain brand of beverages came to visit him and gave him 3 million Chinese yuan as a token of gratitude. But at this point, in Yun Tianming's eyes, fame and money are no longer important. The only thing in his heart is Qing Xian, the goddess of his dreams whom he has secretly loved for many years. It is Yun Tianming's deep love. He decided to do something for Qing Xian before he dies, such as gifting her a star. To confront the Trisolaran crisis during those times, in addition to the Wallfacer project, many other plans were being carried out simultaneously, including the Star Project. Based on the purpose of expanding available resources, the United Nations listed all the exoplanet stars for sale, even though humans couldn't actually possess them. They were considered valid in human society, and anyone could pay to buy their own stars. This absurd plan quickly faded from the stage of history, as very few people actually bought stars. But it helped Yun Tianming fulfill his wish. After going through some formalities, Yun Tianming anonymously purchased a naked-eye visible star, DX3906. He solemnly completed 2 words in the recipient column, Qing Xian. Having fulfilled his last wish, Yun Tianming began the process of euthanasia. But at the moment he pressed the final confirmation button, someone burst through the door and halted the injection process. That person was Qing Xian. At this moment, Qing Xian's first words to him were very unexpected. Tianming, you know what? The euthanasia law was approved for you, Qing Xian said to the confused Yun Tianming, explaining the purpose of her visit. A few years ago, Qing Xian, who graduated with a specialization in aerospace, was not optimistic about the prospects of development in chemical propulsion rockets. After the crisis, Qing Xian decided to join the Strategic Intelligence Agency, PIA, under the Planetary Defense Council, PDC. It is a legendary institution because it has a legendary figure at its helm, Thomas Wade. He is a man who is rational to the point of being cold, a warrior with a strong will to win. His greatest joy is admiring the despair of the weak, and it is he who proposed the impossible mission of sending human probes to Trisolaris. Theoretically speaking, the plan requires the probe to reach at least 1% of the speed of light, which is 100 times the speed limit of human spaceflight. He even made such ridiculous comments as, using resources to change the principle. Experts from various countries still firmly believed it was impossible, which made the mission a source of embarrassment for a while, until Qing Xian presented her idea, the staircase program. Amid mocking laughter, Qing Xian described the idea of the staircase program, sending a probe propelled solely by a radiation sail into space, and then using the radiation from a nuclear explosion at a certain distance as energy to continuously accelerate it. It's like climbing stairs, eventually reaching 1% of the speed of light. After repeated negotiations and compromises, the staircase program was finally approved. Due to technical limitations, the detection probe could only carry a human brain in hibernation. The staircase program is truly the only way to infiltrate enemy territory. Everyone can only choose to believe that the Trisolarans have the ability to restore a human brain into a person and are willing to do so. This kind of behavior is akin to gambling and is very likely to fail. But if successful, one person will be able to enter the interior of the Trisolaran fleet, triggering infinite possibilities. While Qing Xian was carrying out this program, she learned that someone had anonymously given her a star, which came as a great surprise to her. In that moment, she was filled with a sense of happiness that she had never experienced before. The staircase program is in full swing, but using the brain has become a problem. Under the pressure of social morality, the person can only be selected from those with a terminal illness who are willing to sacrifice themselves, and they must also have an aerospace background and be willing to do it. This is a mission worse than going to hell because this brain will fly into the boundless dark universe, to the invading Trisolaran civilization. What awaits it may be various extreme human sensory experiments. But this brain can endure it. When Qing Xian learned that a college classmate specializing in aerospace had a terminal illness, she flew back to China without hesitation and asked that person to donate their brain. This person was Yun Tianming. At this moment, Qing Xian did not know that the man in front of her was the one who anonymously gave her a star, making her ecstatic to become the only woman in the world with a star. But now, she was pleading on behalf of fraternity for all of humanity, as this man was going to die. In front of Qing Xian's serious gaze, Yun Tianming laughed wildly at her self-complacency, and then his heart felt ashamed. With a miserable smile, Yun Tianming said to Qing Xian, "It's fine, I accept." As candidate number 5, Yun Tianming began the trial of the staircase program. But during this period, an accident made Qing Xian feel guilty. It was the death of Mikhail Vadimov. To force Mikhail Vadimov, a mid-level officer of the Strategic Intelligence Agency, PIA, to become a candidate, Thomas Wade carefully framed him, causing him to suffer from a serious illness, leukemia. Mikhail Vadimov, a man with a wife and daughter, was blinded by the disease while driving. The car crashed into the river by the roadside, and he died. It was the end of this life that made Qing Xian feel sorry for Yun Tianming, and she approached Director Thomas Wade hoping to withdraw her recommendation for Yun Tianming. Yun Tianming, who was introverted by nature, passed the qualifying tests, and Thomas Wade, who would do anything to win, wouldn't easily let go of this qualified candidate. Soon, the swearing-in ceremony for the candidates of the staircase program took place in the auditorium of the United Nations General Assembly. After all the other candidates had sworn allegiance to humanity, Yun Tianming did not utter the oath as Qing Xian expected, but calmly said, "I do not swear because I do not feel love in this world. As for whether I am loyal to human beings, it depends on the Trisolaran civilization that I see." This sentence made Qing Xian feel like falling into an icy cave, and it also allowed Yun Tianming to pass the final test. Once again, Thomas Wade was able to turn the tables, reveling in Qing Xian's despair and pain, and he told her that if they believed him, the Trisolarans would believe as well. In this way, after another qualified candidate who refused to take the oath died suddenly from an illness, Yun Tianming became the sole qualified candidate. What awaited him was the live brain resection operation. On the day of the surgery at the hospital, Thomas Wade delivered the final blow to Qing Xian as the victor and told her, "It was him who gave you the star." Qing Xian, frozen in her place, seemed to awaken from a dream. She rushed to the operating room, but all she saw was a frozen brain in a container. In her agonizing pain, Qing Xian let the torrent of sadness burst forth. In order to prevent Yun Tianming from starving in the future, she wanted to bring some important things, seeds, to the probe. Finally, the probe took off but deviated from its course. Humans would no longer be able to observe the human wave, and Qing Xian, the liaison officer, was sent to the future as part of the staircase program through artificial hibernation. After Luo Ji used the Dark Forest Law to save Earth, the planet entered the era of deterrence. The Trisolarans lifted the technological blockade on Earth and painstakingly taught humans science. They also assisted humans in building gravitational wave antennas and the gravitational wave spacecraft, Gravity, to aid in deterrence. Humans needed to construct gravitational wave transmitters because using gravitational waves allowed for more reliable and effective communication than any previous means. Humans are a proud race, and half a century of peaceful coexistence with the Trisolarans had led to a return to tranquility and even stupidity. This stupidity was first manifested in a scam involving return flights on the spacecraft. The two surviving ships, Bronze Age and Blue Space, from the Battle of the End of the World received orders to return to Mother Earth. All crew members were told they would be reunited with their families as heroes. However, as soon as the Bronze Age spacecraft, which was closer to Earth and had made the decision to return earlier than Blue Space, landed, all crew members were accused of crimes against humanity. Their ranks were stripped, and they were brought before the courts. The call to return to Earth was nothing more than an international scam orchestrated by both Earth and the Trisolarans, conspiring to lure them back from their journey. In court, facing charges of desertion in battle, the main accusation was that they launched a sneak attack on the other ship to plunder its resources. Here, the crew's testimonies painted a grim picture of a brutal universe. Launching the attack was the result of a collective vote by the entire crew. When humans truly enter space, it only takes 5 minutes for totalitarianism to emerge. We stored the intact bodies of those who died from infrasound for consumption. These chilling testimonies culminate in a captain's warning that the landing of life on Earth from the ocean is a milestone in the evolution of life on Earth. But those fish that come ashore are no longer fish. Similarly, the people who truly venture into space are no longer human. Therefore, humans, be extremely cautious when planning to fly into outer space and never look back. The price they must pay is far greater than they could ever imagine. In the face of this warning, the human world at this moment does not care. In the end, almost the entire crew was found guilty and will be taken to a space prison. Before departing, some crew members boarded the Bronze Age once again to complete the spacecraft delivery. Schneider, the detection officer of the Bronze Age who was in the process of the final handover, forcefully opened the communication system. He wants to contact another surviving ship, the Blue Space. In the midst of blood sprayed on his chest by the military police, he issued one last warning. Do not return, this is not your home. The timely warning reached Blue Space, causing it to immediately depart the solar system. Due to the immense trauma of the war, humans cannot accept the water droplets and choose to destroy them outright. Under the surveillance of the two water droplets, humans sent the spacecraft Gravity to pursue them. If this deceitful return cannot prove the foolishness and arrogance of humans, then the following events are evidence enough. Peaceful deterrence is a comfortable cradle in which humans transform from adults to children. At that moment, it is time for this child to awaken from its dream, for the god of death has opened its eyes. Human civilization has learned more and more from the Trisolarans, and the Trisolarans have also gained much from the brilliant human culture. When people first learned that the Trisolarans were fond of Earth's culture, they didn't believe it. Later, the Trisolarans showed people many artworks that imitated human culture, including movies, novels, paintings, and more. These artworks were populated by human characters, and the settings were all based on Earth. Only then did people believe it. People used artificial intelligence and bionic technology to help Sahan create a body. Sahan transformed into a robot with a physical form, taking on the beautiful and solemn image of a Japanese woman. In the 61st year of the Deterrence era, Qing Xian woke up from hibernation, not through the staircase program, but because of the star given to her by Yun Tianming. Humans have discovered that DX3906 has 2 planets, one of which is a terrestrial planet very similar to Earth. By selling the rights to these 2 planets, Qing Xian obtained a substantial amount of money. At the same time, she also met a new assistant, a PhD student who successfully observed the terrestrial planets, AIAA. Using the assets, Qing Xian registered a company for herself, which seemed like a promising new beginning. However, this beautiful life was soon shattered by a conspiracy. This is the murder of Thomas Wade. The ruthless former director of PIA, Thomas Wade, also arrived in the new era through hibernation. Now, he aimed a weapon at Qing Xian. After falsifying A's phone number to lure Qing Xian to the meeting place, Thomas Wade fired 2 shots with a pistol from a previous era, but it did not reach Qing Xian's vital signs. Just as he was about to deliver the fatal shot, A arrived in a flying police car and stopped Wade's rampage. After his failed attempt at murder, Wade clearly admitted that his purpose in doing so was to prevent Qing Xian from becoming a sword holder. What was Wade talking about, sword holder, and what did it have to do with Qing Xian? There are 3 gravitational wave antennas distributed in Asia, North America, and Europe, and there is another gravitational wave antenna in space, which is the ship Gravity. The sword holder has the right to activate the gravitational wave antennas and send the coordinated signal of the 3-body system to the universe. As long as the Trisolarans are dishonest, the signal will be sent. Soon, the 3-body system and the human world will be attacked by other advanced extraterrestrial civilizations. At this moment, the Trisolaran civilizations and the human world are in the hands of one person, and that person is Luo Ji, the current sword holder. His 54-year career as a sword holder has made him a spiritual pillar of humanity, but it has also made him a loner. His wife and daughter have been gone for a long time. Luo Ji, who is now 101 years old, cannot continue to be a sword holder. For this reason, humans must choose a new sword holder. Before the establishment of Deterrence, the collective concern in human society was the invasion of the Trisolarans. After the establishment of Deterrence and a long period of peace, humans and the 3-body civilization have engaged in equal actions and intimate exchanges. The image of the Trisolaran civilization in the eyes of humans has transformed from a demonic invader to an equal partner in the universe. It has become difficult to distinguish between friends and enemies. Therefore, the greatest collective concern in human society is no longer invasion but deterrence itself, the fear of deterrence itself. Deterrence itself implies the uncertainty of mutual annihilation. The higher the degree of deterrence, the greater the uncertainty of this mutual annihilation. In a beautiful era of sharing prosperity with the Trisolaran civilization on equal footing, a person holding the deterrence button can, at any moment, put an end to this beauty. This kind of deterrence makes humans feel insecure. Therefore, people are afraid of a serious sword holder like Luo Ji, that Luo Ji does not want to relinquish the role of sword holder, and that the fate of 2 civilizations remains in the hands of a serious and cold elder. Gradually, people hope that the sword holder will be kind. Thus, under a broad and democratic decision-making mechanism of the entire society, the majority of people have chosen the successful entrepreneur Ching Xian, a caring person who is least likely to follow the law. After Ching Xian quickly recovered with the help of modern medical technology, she soon received an invitation from Sahan to meet her. In a courtyard filled with Eastern implications, Sapan, dressed in a kimono, entertained Ching Xian and other candidates with the tea ceremony. During the tea tasting, Sapan spoke with profound meaning, implying that Ching Xian could be the sword holder. Shortly after meeting Sapan, Ching Xian went to the United Nations to attend the ceremony for the transfer of the 2 planets. After the ceremony, the United Nations and the Solar System fleet unanimously proposed that she be chosen as the sword holder. In this moment, Ching Xian stood in front of a sea of people in the plaza. A holographic slogan image displaying her portrait floated above the crowd like a cloud of colors. A young mother with a baby approached and handed the baby into her arms, making her resemble a statue of the Virgin of Guadalupe. The woman, whose own mother had picked her up from a park bench, had no other choice. This time, it was the humans who chose Ching Xian, not Ching Xian who chose to be a sword holder. Thus, Ching Xian decided to run in the elections and became the new sword holder without any suspense. At the same time in space, Gravity, relying on its absolute resource advantages and complete monitoring by Sapan, is about to catch up to Blue Space. To carry out the final capture mission, all members on board were awakened from hibernation. However, strange things began to happen one after another in a short period of time. First, a commander claimed to have seen a member of the Blue Space crew enter the Gravity spaceship, which was impossible. Then, damage from micrometeoroid impacts was found inside the intact and airtight spacecraft. What's even worse is that a lieutenant named Ike saw through a suddenly appeared strange hole in the bulkhead and saw the sleeping team member on the other side with half of her calf neatly cut off, while the other part was unharmed. Additionally, the patrol boat from Gravity in space also saw that the entire Gravity seemed to have been cut by a giant knife into 1/5, revealing a smooth slope. Among the many strange phenomena, space observer Guan Yi felt the deepest unease. The scientist, who is filled with boundless love for the vast universe, unexpectedly suffers from claustrophobia due to a dream. During a conversation with the doctor, they discussed the topic of the 3-dimensional universe, but the conversation was suddenly interrupted by an alarm. The Gravity ship caught up to them, and one of the 2 water droplets attacked Blue Space, but surprisingly, the other droplet also attacked Gravity. And at this moment, the official handover of the sword holder is completed on Earth. This is a significant moment that the Trisolarans have been eagerly awaiting for over half a century of communication with humans. The Trisolarans have also learned strategies from humans. Taking advantage of the sword holder's handover, they immediately used hidden water droplets to launch surprise attacks on the Earth's gravitational wave transmission towers. It only takes 10 minutes to complete this strike. In the underground fortress, Ching Xian has just taken hold of Luo Ji's sword. It is only at this moment that she realizes her naivety. In the past 10 minutes, her mind quickly traverses the 4.5 billion years of Earth's evolution. She seems to see the eyes of countless creatures, the eyes of countless great men, and finally, the smile of the baby in her arms. No. With a roar, Qing Xian throws the remote control from her hand. 10 minutes later, the droplet destroys the only 3 remaining gravitational wave transmission towers on Earth. The dark forest deterrence has come to an end. It turns out that the Trisolarans had already calculated the deterrence power of each candidate, and Qing Xian was the breaking point. Furthermore, the Trisolarans have always concealed the technology they haven't taught humans, and that is the new technology developed for manufacturing spacecraft at the speed of light. The Trisolarans have now constructed light-speed spacecraft. 4 years later, the new Trisolaran fleet will arrive at Earth. The Trisolarans have shattered the fragile balance between the two civilizations. Shortly after the dissipation of deterrence, the Wallfacers' actions would also prove futile as the droplet and the Saphan halted all human movements. Saphan issued the Reservation Declaration, stating that except for a small reservation on Mars, people worldwide must migrate to Australia within a year. Initially, nobody wanted to leave their hometown. Humans were still immersed in the illusion of comfort. However, 5 days later, the droplets launched intimidating attacks on 3 major cities in succession. They traversed the sky over the cities, ignoring all buildings, and fire and debris covered the entire city. Over 300,000 people lost their lives. At this point, humans began to migrate to Australia. Accompanied by AA, Qing Xian came to Australia and lived in a poor neighborhood in the desert. Here, they met Ferez, a kind and gentle indigenous elder, and received his care. As the migration was nearing completion, Qing Xian also visited an old friend, Thomas Wade, in prison. The man sentenced to 30 years for attempted murder is still an undisputed leader even in prison. He only said one word to Qing Xian, run. This is a pertinent suggestion because the Trisolarans, deeply understanding the laws of the dark forest, soon showed their fangs. They initiated a long-planned plan for human extinction. As people from around the world arrived in Australia, there soon became a shortage of food and resources, leading to disturbances of a certain scale. However, in this case, the human security forces recruited by the Trisolarans destroyed all electrical facilities and modern factories. In an emergency meeting of the United Nations General Assembly, Saphan announced that a similar state of resource limitation would continue for 3 months. This is a doomsday sentence, like an escape from death row, because it means that only 30 to 50 million out of the 4.2 billion people on Earth can survive. Each of them has become food in the eyes of their companions. Only those who act like wild beasts, fighting to eat food from others, will not become someone else's meal. Faced with the cruel reality of cannibalism, Qing Xian felt her vision darken in the crowd, as if she were actually blind. In her ears, all of Australia feels like a purgatory for those condemned to death, and almost no one can escape the fate of the real battle. However, at this moment, the last spark of human civilization slowly ignited in the 2 warships in space. At the moment Luo Ji hands over his sword holder identity to Qing Xian, the water droplets strike all the gravitational wave emitters simultaneously. Among them is gravity. Being a new warship compared to those on Earth, gravity itself is a massive emitter of gravitational waves, making it an inevitable target for the water droplets. However, it exceeded everyone's expectations. The 2 water droplets deviated from their orbits, and gravity, through a visible light video recording, replayed the scene. The crew members of Gravity witnessed a miracle with their own eyes. It was the scene where the blue space trawler descended from the dull water droplets out of nowhere and harvested them. They defeated the water droplets. The astonished crew members of Gravity quickly rushed to the gravitational wave launch control room. Here, I have to mention the anti-sword holder because the behavior of Gravity in outer space is uncertain. To prevent others from hijacking Gravity and initiating the transmission of gravitational waves, someone needs to destroy the transmission control unit when there is a dangerous situation on board to prevent the destruction of Earth without reason. The Stalker, anti-sword holder, Hunter from the Gravity spacecraft was the first to respond and reach the gravitational wave launch control room, but the later arriving crew of Gravity witnessed an astonishing scene. They saw Hunter suddenly tearing off the coat he had on his chest. Immediately after, his body stiffened abruptly, his eyes turned white, and along with the blood coming out of his mouth, there was also a strange tubular object floating in the air, which was Hunter's heart. At that moment, a heavily armed group of Blue Space members descended suddenly and announced the total occupation of Gravity. In the spherical chamber of the Blue Space, all members from the 2 spacecraft came together to form a new common world, Starship Humanity. As a legend, Chu Yen, the captain of the Blue Space, showed everyone the image of the Trisolaran fleet marching towards Earth at the speed of light, and only then did people learn what had happened on Earth. As guardians of the last gravitational wave transmitter, the humans on the spacecraft faced a choice. Finally, 315 years after Yuwenjia sent the first signal, on a homeless ship wandering in space, a group of Earth's children approved a referendum and ultimately sentenced their Mother Earth. As dozens of hands pressed the button, the strings of the gravitational wave transmitter rippled in space. The death sentence for both worlds was transmitted to the entire universe at the speed of light. Due to the success that took place on gravity, the people of Earth were once again temporarily relieved from the crisis of the end of the world. In the words of Saban, the current solar system no longer has to worry about invasion, and this place, like the Trisolaran world, has become a realm of death. So far, the turmoil on Earth has temporarily returned to calm. But the adventure of the spacecraft has just begun. To find answers to all the strange phenomena that occurred earlier, 3 representatives of the human fleet will enter the 4-dimensional space. Under the guidance of Captain Chu Yen, the alien linguist Movovich, and the space observer Guan Yifan entered the 4-dimensional space together through the invisible spherical surface in the space bubble. After the brain adapted to the sense of high-dimensional space with infinite details, only then could they clearly see that the vast things in 3-dimensional space would repeat infinitely here, like countless mirrors being replicated. There is an indescribable sense of depth here, within square centimeters, bottomless. This is a world filled with infinite details, where the crew's internal organs and blood can be seen. Even the cellular structure inside is unobstructed. At the same time, all the cables and integrated circuits of the spacecraft are exposed. From the perspective of 4-dimensional space, all 3-dimensional objects are nothing more than unfolded planes, defenseless. The various miracles in gravity occur precisely because the spacecraft has entered the fragments of 4-dimensional space. It is also by virtue of this discovery that blue space can easily ambush the invincible water droplets in the 3-dimensional world. Similarly, Diarena, the witch from centuries ago, is no longer a mystery because extracting a 3-dimensional human brain from a 4-dimensional space is as easy as drawing a circle on a 2-dimensional paper. Here the 3 of them saw a cemetery of a 4-dimensional civilization that resembled a ring. After establishing a connection through a simple matrix of dots, the ring civilization said to the 3 of them, "The 4-dimensional space you are now in is like a puddle in the drying sea. It is itself a graveyard for the fish of these waters, and the fish that dried up the sea have come ashore." They fled from one dark forest to another. This conversation hides the dark secret of the end of the universe. At this moment, Guan Yifan and the others were still far from being able to understand what it meant, and the 3 who finished the conversation gave a miniature ecosystem to the cemetery and returned to the spaceship. With a trace of doubt about the dialogue of the ring civilization, the 2 ships withdrew from the 4-dimensional space and witnessed the spectacular scene where the ring civilization transformed into a waterfall and finally became a straight line. After this fantastic journey, the crews of both ships contemplate their destinies. In the end, except for 200 people who took the hibernation capsule and returned to the solar system, the rest of the crew are like the 2 seeds of human beings, spreading into the depths of the sea of stars in space. So far, the era of deterrence has ended. 7th year of the radio era, Qing Xian, who was blinded by a great mental shock, ended her 6-year hibernation. Through a transplant of clone stem cells to grow a retina, she regained her sight. And under AA's operation for 6 years, her company has become a giant in the space construction industry. By that time, a large number of refugees had already returned to the city. They would worship the 2 warships that sent the transmission and the Earth resistance fighters during the colonization period as heroes. And those individuals who worked as security forces for the Trisolarans were executed in large numbers. Furthermore, humanity as a whole has entered an unprecedented peace, and some people even question the theory of the Dark Forest, thinking that the ultimate destruction would not come at all. However, this illusion was quickly shattered. That night, Qing Xian woke up to a phone call from Elder Ferez. During the call, the Elder asked her to look at the night sky. Qing Xian witnessed the magnificent destruction of an exoplanetary star that humans had admired for 3 centuries. This is the destruction of the Trisolaran world. This is the first time the human world has witnessed the destruction of a civilization. According to closely monitored data from the Trisolaran world, humans discovered that the method to destroy the Trisolaran world is exactly the same as the one used to curse a star by Luo Ji back then. They are both affected by light-speed particles that cause the expansion of the star's own mass. However, chillingly, the grain of light did not originate from a star. Instead, it came from some kind of extraterrestrial civilization ship of which humans know nothing, which means the god of death is very close to humans and can arrive at any moment. After the destruction of the Trisolaran home planet, Sapan invited Qing Xian and Luo Ji to meet. Through their conversation, they outlined the scene of the destruction of the Trisolaran galaxy. A 50,000-kilometer wide hole appeared on the surface of the star struck by the light particles. Within a short time, matter within the sun spewed out of the hole, like a fire tree growing on the sun. Soon, the fire tree grew to the orbital plane of the planet. The 3-body world passed through the fire tree for 30 minutes, as if passing through an oven. Lava covered the entire planet as it emerged from the fire tree. All life vanished until finally, the star collapsed, causing a big bang. It reduced this civilization to ashes, scattered in the boundless darkness of the universe. The remnants formed two gray cemeteries surrounding the two remaining stable binary star-forming galaxies. After this catastrophe, less than 1,000th of the Trisolarans fled into the limitless space on spaceships. People are taking this meeting very seriously and hope that Luo Ji and Qing Xian will return with valuable information. When everyone learned that the Trisolaran world had been destroyed, Sabhan delivered a brief speech on behalf of all the Trisolarans. There was no condemnation, resentment, or evaluation in her words, only a concise report of the disaster process, and the Trisolaran civilization began its journey to find a new home. Luo Ji and Qing Xian entered Safen's house and began a conversation about a tea ceremony with historical significance. From the beginning of this conversation, Qing Xian was anxious to ask several questions, and Safen's likely response was that the solar system would be destroyed, but it would take some time. It could be a century or two, but the most urgent matter is to run fast. Sapan, hoping not to be questioned further, said, "I invite the two of you to have tea and bid farewell." Luo Ji, who had been silent all this time, said, "May I ask one more question?" Sapan asked Luo Ji to wait a moment, and after thinking for a while, she told Luo Ji, "Yes, this is out of respect for Luo Ji from us, the Trisolarans, but I can only answer you with yes, no, or I don't know, and then I will not answer any more questions from both of you." Luo Ji did not hesitate at all and asked the final question. "Is there a safety declaration in the universe that can prevent the attack of the Dark Forest?" The room fell silent for a long time, and Sabhan finally spoke, saying, "Yes." Después de la conversation, humans who revived hope began making various futile attempts. There were spontaneous programs of high-power radio wave transmissions. There were conservative plans to revert to an agrarian civilization, even self-inflicted plans for mentally impaired individuals to poison the tap water of New York, and all sorts of crazy religious revivals. However, for Qing Xian, all of this felt like punishment. She decided to take medication to commit suicide, but the day came when Sabhan would leave, and she would leave this beautiful planet behind. She met with Luo Ji and Qing Xian one last time, and this time, the three of them said nothing because they all knew that what they had to say had ended. Sahan broke the silence and said, "Please take care of yourselves, both of you. The universe is vast, life is vaster, perhaps we will meet again in the future. And, Qing Xian, Yun Tianming wants to see you." The Three-Body Problem 3, The End of Death Part 1 End. In the previous chapter, Sabhan told Qing Xian, "Yun Tianming wants to see you." It turned out that the Trisolarans had been paying attention to the staircase program at that time. When the first Trisolaran fleet was forced to leave the solar system due to Luo Ji's threat, they decided to find the probe equipped with Yun Tianming's brain as a memento. Based on the fact that Yun Tianming was able to see Qing Xian, it seems that Yun Tianming is doing well on the Trisolaran spacecraft. The Trisolarans solemnly declare, "This is only a matter between Yun Tianming and Qing Xian. The two parties must not mention the Trisolaran civilization, and there should be no third party present in the meeting, nor can anything be recorded on any form." To ensure isolation, the meeting is set up in space. Passing through the space elevator filled with marks of time, Qing Xian boarded a spherical boat with 3 indicator lights. Under the close surveillance of the Trisolarans, in a spherical display of proton deployment, the communication began. Qing Xian saw Yun Tianming. His body was restored. Yun Tianming looked very healthy and young. Yun Tianming told Qing Xian that he usually cultivates and entertains on the Trisolaran spacecraft. His main work is to tell stories to the Trisolaran children. By the way, due to the lack of culture, the Trisolarans especially enjoy listening to Yun Tianming's stories. Yun Tianming also published a book there and became a well-known writer in the Trisolaran world. Since the Trisolarans have been monitoring this conversation, if it is found that the conversation involves something that is not allowed to be mentioned, then the boat may explode. They didn't have too many words between them, so Qing Xian expressed her desire to hear Yun Tianming's story. In fact, this was a carefully planned dialogue by Yun Tianming. The Trisolarans won't pay attention to every phrase he recounts because it's a story that has already been published in Trisolaran civilization. In this way, the two people separated by 3 centuries agreed that they would meet again someday in their own star. After the conversation ended, Qing Xian returned to Earth and arrived at a secret meeting room. This conference room is a blind spot for Sophans due to the highly conductive metals present there. Although the Trisolarans have made it clear that all Sophans will evacuate Earth, for the sake of Yun Tianming's safety and security, it is necessary to record the content of the conversation here. The tales that Yun Tianming told. Part 1, The New Painter of the Kingdom. Long ago, there was a kingdom called the Kingdom of No Stories. In this kingdom, there was a wise king who had 2 sons, Prince Ice Sandy and Prince Deepwater. There was also a daughter named Princess Dewdrop. Prince Deepwater went to Tomb Island in the Taobai Sea when he was a child and never returned. This was because Prince Ice Sandy had been abusive from an early age. The king finally decided that Princess Dewdrop would inherit the throne. In revenge, Prince Ice Sandy hired a new artist named Needle Eye. Needle Eye could draw people into his paintings, making them disappear. This kind of painting had to be done on snow wave paper from Helsing and Mosken for it to be magical. And this type of paper had to be flattened with obsidian boards. In this way, Prince Ice Sandy ordered painter Needle Eye to get rid of the king, the queen, and some of the ministers. Finally, he prepared to draw the princess in the painting. At the moment of crisis, Master Kongling, Needle Eye's painting master, rushed to the palace. He brought an umbrella that could save the princess. Kongling said it came from Helsing and Mosken. In the past, other painters also had this kind of painting ability, and could even draw animals and plants in their paintings. But one day, a dragon appeared, and 3 master painters successively drew it, but it still leaped out of the painting and flew away. Later, the painters raised money and hired a magical warrior who killed the dragon with a fire sword. This umbrella was made from the dragon's remains, so hiding under the umbrella could prevent being drawn into the painting. After explaining the origin of the umbrella, Captain Chang Fan and Aunt Quan escorted the princess out of the palace. They went to the Taohai Sea to find Prince Deepwater. Once Prince Deepwater returned to the palace, he could kill painter Needle Eye, and the princess would be safe. So the 3 set off with a costly soap specially made for princesses. Part 2. The Taohai Sea. When the 3 of them reached the beach, the princess realized it was a sea of death. That's because there is a species of Taohai fish all over the sea. Their teeth are as hard as diamonds, and they can swallow everything in the sea. It turns out there's a story from the ancient kingdom. Many entrepreneurs kept introducing this Taohai fish for profit. Until one day, a shipwreck led them into this maritime area, surrounding the kingdom of no stories. This made it completely isolated from the outside world. After discussing the origin of the Taohai fish, Captain Chang Fan stayed on the beach and made a promise to protect the princess forever. Part 3. Prince Deepwater. After dawn, the princess looked at Tomb Island from a distance. She saw a giant standing on the island, and that was Prince Deepwater. As she watched, the princess's bathtub filled with soap bubbles was accidentally washed into the water by the waves. Surprisingly, they discovered that the bubbles could make the Taohai fish lazily lie in them and float, causing them to lose their aggressiveness. So they used soap to pave the way and finally landed on Tomb Island. As they approached Prince Deepwater, they all realized that the prince wasn't a giant. It turned out that his height didn't change with distance and didn't adhere to the principle of perspective. After the brothers recognized each other, the group returned to the palace. Prince Ice Sandy and Prince Deepwater fought for the throne. Due to the inability to judge Prince Deepwater's relative distance, Prince Ice Sandy was at a complete disadvantage. In the end, Prince Deepwater pierced Prince Ice Sandy's chest with a sword and reclaimed the throne. From then on, the kingdom of no stories returned to stability, while the princess and Captain Chang Fan set sail. In the vast world where people have never been, they lived a happy life. So far, the story has been told, but all the experts present are lost. Numerous concepts, endless associations. No one can decipher the clues of the story. Soon, the tale became an unsolved mystery in the human world and gradually faded from people's memory. Until one day, Ching Xian and AA were in the bathroom, using soap to change the surface tension of water in an experiment with a small paper boat. They successfully discovered one of the important hidden messages in the story. They placed a piece of soap at the stern of the small paper boat, and the boat moved forward automatically. This is because the soap changes the water's tension, but the water's surface tension in front of the boat remains the same, causing the boat to move forward. That is the technology of the Trisolaris spacecraft at the speed of light. This type of propulsion works by affecting space, utilizing space curvature to propel the spacecraft at the speed of light. Taking this as a significant breakthrough, the research group found a way to decipher Yun Tianming's story and managed to unravel a significant amount of information covered by double-layer metaphors and two-dimensional metaphors. For example, a linguist discovered that Helsing and Mosken is actually the name of 2 places in Norway. There is a system of tidal whirlpools, one of the strongest in the world. After Ching Xian and her group ventured into danger by exploring Moskströmmen, they escaped the maelstroms with the help of a helicopter. They understood Yun Tianming's metaphor of comparing the whirlpools to black holes. Although the curse of painter Needle Eye has not been deciphered, 3 survival plans for human civilization were born. Option 1. Bunker plan. In the shadow of the 4 giant planets in the solar system, they build space cities and use the planets as shelters. Even if the sun is destroyed by the attack of light particles, the space city will be preserved. This is the spontaneous defense method of human beings and is currently the most respected solution. Option 2. Black domain project. By converting the solar system into a low-speed light black domain, a declaration of cosmic safety is made, providing the highest level of security. However, how to convert the solar system into a black domain with low-speed light remains a technical problem that humans cannot solve. Even if successful, humans will be trapped in the black domain forever, like a realm without stories, isolated from the world. Option 3. Speed of light spaceship project. The universe is not flat but a huge curved membrane, so space curvature is everywhere. If a propulsion system can be developed that changes the space curvature in front and behind the spaceship, spacecraft will be able to achieve speeds of light. This is curvature-driven technology, allowing humans to escape the solar system and find a new home. Unlike the bunker plan created by humans, for the sake of future generations to have the freedom to explore space, Tranquility's Star Ring company leans more towards the speed of light spaceship project. However, in the process of research and development, the verdict of death seems to suddenly arrive. The alarm sirens for an attack sounded abruptly worldwide. The entire world plunged into unprecedented fear. The repression of the alarm unleashed the greatest social unrest since the last Great Migration to Australia. Across thousands of launch ports, people fighting for their lives actually started stampedes among the crowd. Over 10,000 people perished in the flames of nuclear engines. The air was filled with the smell of charred human flesh. This collective madness driven by the desire to survive was finally quelled by an announcement. Flota International and the United Nations eventually declared it to be a false alarm. In addition to once again demonstrating the ugliness of human nature, the false alarm incident also exposed a batch of secretly developed interstellar spaceships. This made humans ponder the inequality in the face of death. It also heightened the doubts of the international community regarding the speed of light spaceship program. Soon, even greater doubts arose. In the observation of the remains of the Trisolaris star, humans discovered that a spacecraft with a curvature-driven engine would leave a trace when it reached the speed of light, like a note marking the location of the Trisolaris galaxy in the universe. It was this discovery that directly led to the complete demise of the speed of light spaceship project. However, one day, Thomas Wade found Tranquility and said, "Developing spaceships at the speed of light is the right way, but you don't have the strength to do it. Give me all the resources you have and let me do it." Tranquility agreed with his final words. Thomas Wade said to Tranquility, "Don't make a second mistake." Tranquility didn't want to give up either. She knew that the project to develop a spacecraft capable of traveling at the speed of light would require the protection of a powerful force. Clearly, Thomas Wade was the perfect man for the mission. So, on the day they attended the bunker plan test, the three of them made the decision that Tranquility and AA would enter hibernation, and Thomas Wade would take charge of Star Ring Company and continue developing the light-speed spacecraft. He promised Tranquility that she would wake up once the development posed a threat to human lives. She still held the highest decision-making power over the plan. However, at this moment, Tranquility could not have imagined that it was this promise that would make the entire human society pay a painful price for it. Bunker Year 11. After waking up from hibernation once again, Tranquility discovered that she had come to the bunker world and was now in the world behind Jupiter. Asian Space City No. 1. The orderly buildings here are densely arranged, and you can see the distance as far as the eye can reach. The elevated terrain in the distance is also covered with buildings, rising and connecting to the opposite side. It was then that Tranquility realized that Asia 1 City was like a large cylinder, dancing and spinning in space with Jupiter's satellite. Accompanied by Chow Bin, Tranquility embarked on a 3-day journey to the bunker world. Today's bunker world is composed of over 60 space cities, and the political status of each space city is equivalent to that of a country. They are located on the decks of the 4 planets, Saturn, Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune, and the 4 major urban clusters together form the Solar System Federation. The first stop on the journey is North America 1, which is a spherical-shaped space city. It uses an artificial sun in the center of the sphere to illuminate the entire city. Tranquility's spacecraft had to synchronize its rotation with the city to land, due to the gravitational deviation caused by the spherical structure. The city's bodies of water naturally concentrate around the equator. Afterwards, Tranquility arrived at the next city, Europe 4. This is the most prosperous place in the bunker world, and among the exquisite villas, each one has a swimming pool and even a spacious garden. Tranquil fishermen with white sails and yachts sailing on the water bear witness to the luxurious life here. In stark contrast to Europa 4 is Pacific 1. It used to be the workers' lounge and construction materials warehouse during the bunker project's construction phase. Abandoned due to design flaws, it is now a playground for vagabonds and despondent artists. There is even an interesting unwritten convention here. To prevent the tragedy of destroying the outer layer of the space city from recurring, all gang fights can only take place in the city center. After visiting several other space cities, Tranquility saw Lightspeed 2, which was a dead city abandoned due to the research of the Black Domain project. Here, Chow Bin tells Tranquility a love story about a black hole. During Tranquility's hibernation period, humans turned Telesto, satellite, into a black hole and built this space city around it. To conduct physical research on the gravitational field, there is a solitary researcher named Gao Wei. He is forever fixed in the moment he crossed the black hole. He became the blue light at the heart of the cave, reflecting a girl who once loved him. After hearing the story, Tranquility also arrived at Xinhuan, Star Ring City, the destination of the journey. She still doesn't know that, due to her arrival, this place will become a turning point in the destiny of humanity. Star Ring City was previously known as the Star Ring Group. After years of arduous efforts by Thomas Wade, a research and development base for light-speed spacecraft was built. Now independent of the Solar System Federation government, to evade the scrutiny of faster-than-light spacecraft research. At this moment, the federal government has surrounded Star Ring City, and war is imminent. It was at this critical moment in human life that Ching Xian woke up from hibernation as promised. In the laboratory of Star Ring City, Thomas Wade demonstrated to Ching Xian through a small space warp accelerator that they had mastered the core technology of the warp engine. As long as there is an experimental environment, mass production of light-speed spacecraft can be achieved. What an exciting outcome! However, it is prohibited by federal law. To confront the imminent war, Thomas Wade had already made preparations. At that moment, a group of robust death squads appeared in front of Ching Xian, each one determined to die. They wielded primitive rifles and carried 2 chains of antimatter bullets on their backs. It is these antimatter bullets that can instantaneously annihilate all space cities and federal fleets. At this moment, a group of fighters wielding this weapon have been secretly lurking in major space cities. Just like the self-defense force here, they were waiting for Ching Xian to give the order to fight. If it is said that the failure of the swordholder was the choice of all humanity, then this time, it was entirely Ching Xian's personal decision. At this moment, the smiling face of the baby appeared before Ching Xian's eyes once again, but the brave soldiers in front of her were like a pack of hungry wolves howling. She firmly asked Thomas Wade to surrender his weapon and give up all resistance. After confirming Ching Xian's decision, in Wade's eyes, the flame that had persisted for over 3 centuries extinguished. It was replaced by that rare look of helplessness and pleading. He said word by word, "To lose human nature you lose much, to lose bestiality you lose everything." In this way, Ching Xian once again used her fraternity to castrate humanity's hope of exploring the unknown world. Thomas Wade fulfilled his promise in exchange for the death penalty imposed by the federal government. He was instantly vaporized by a powerful laser, and the Federation occupied the entire Xinghuan, Star Ring City. Ching Xian, once again, was regarded as an idol, but she couldn't hide the disappointment in her heart. After revisiting the sterile Earth with AA, the two decided to hibernate once more and enter the post-attack human world. However, no one anticipated that the Dark Forest attack would be somewhat different. During Ching Xian's hibernation, the solar system's early warning system detected an unidentified flying object passing near the Oort Nebula at the speed of light. This was Singer's spacecraft. Singer is a humble civilization cleanser, so modest that it doesn't even have a name. Singer is only called Singer because it enjoys humming while working. There are hundreds of millions of civilizations like Singer's civilization in the universe, and each civilization has billions of cleansers. The task of these low-entropy bodies is quite simple: to eliminate marked exposed civilizations. While Singer fluttered through the solar system, it inadvertently noticed the coordinates of the destroyed Trisolaris system. And then it discovered the naive civilization of humans, who had marked it. Furthermore, Singer realized that this civilization already possessed the ability to mark other civilizations but lacked the ability to hide. Singer sensed the great threat of this civilization, as it could undergo a technological explosion and evolve into a more advanced civilization. Singer's duty led it to immediately eliminate this civilization with a light particle. However, upon closer observation of the solar system, Singer discovered some dead spots where the particles could not completely eradicate the civilization. After all, destroying a civilization was a routine task for Singer. Precise observation of this solar system was deemed unnecessary. Therefore, Singer requested another weapon of attack from the Elders, the double vector blade, and hurled it towards the solar system. This double vector blade appeared like a piece of bidirectional paper floating in the universe. When the human exploration spacecraft Apocalypse arrived beside the double vector blade, they discovered that it was a small transparent piece of paper that anything could pass through. It was impossible to touch the double vector blade, so the Apocalypse had to maneuver to wrap it within its hull. Facing the static sheet of transparent paper, humans felt no sense of threat. The situation was reminiscent of the water droplet from before, and humans even believed it to be not an apocalyptic attack, but a friendly letter. They even played with the transparent sheet, treating it as completely harmless. Until the student scientist Ding Yi by AZ woke up from the quicksand nightmare, as mentioned by his professor, and persuaded the captain to stay away from this piece of paper. He uttered the classic warning: weakness and ignorance are not obstacles to survival, but arrogance is. Soon, when the light of the double vector blade completely vanished, people discovered that both the dazzling light and the gravitational wave were released by the outer layer's encapsulation force field. The true destruction began. As if being sucked into a flat abyss, space around the double vector blade started flowing towards itself. This is the collapse from the three-dimensional world to the two-dimensional world, and the escape velocity from this collapse is the speed of light, encompassing the entire solar system. It wasn't until they were pressed against the sheet that the members of the spacecraft realized that this transparent paper sent by the Singer was the snow wave paper drawn by the painter Needle Eye. This is the final hidden secret in Yun Tianming's dimensionality reduction attack tale. At this moment, the god of death wields a brush, turning the entire solar system into a giant, dimensionless painting. This is the arrival of death. When Qing Xin and AA woke up from hibernation, they were already in a new spacecraft called Xinghuan. Through an information window, Elder Chao Bin told them, "The two-dimensional fall of the solar system has begun, and with the help of the AI spacecraft, you must fly to Pluto, the farthest planet from the sun, as soon as possible. An old friend is waiting for you there." At a giant stone monument on Pluto, Qing Xin and AA recognized Elder Luo Ji. To preserve human civilization, Luo Ji organized the construction of a human museum here, which he called the Human Stele. Ironically, when they want to choose an effective way to preserve information, they discover that leaving traces is more difficult than creating the world. At the end of this civilization, they can only do what the ancients did, which is to carve words into stones. As if walking through the long history of human civilization, Luo Ji followed the two of them to the end of the tunnel engraved with words and arrived at the hall where human cultural relics were stored. Here, Luo Ji asked them to choose some cultural relics as memories, including Van Gogh's Starry Sky. Looking at this oil painting that expresses space with countless thin and restless lines, Qing Xin couldn't help but admire that perhaps Van Gogh had already understood that the universe is composed of countless vibrating strings. When the three of them emerged from the deep underground tomb and stood under the starry sky once again, a two-dimensional film was projected on a giant screen. In the sky at this moment, Neptune and Saturn had turned into a pair of large eyes hanging in the sky, watching them from above. The eyes were gradually expanding, but their thickness was 0. Finally, it was Earth's turn, filled with countless details, the two-dimensional Earth and the fleeing crowd. The enormous paintings froze the flock of birds, froze the rain of people, and even every mite and bacteria were captured in the flat painting. This was a crushed Mother Earth, this was a dead world, a dead painting. After Mercury also fell into 2 dimensions, the fall of the sun began as well. Amidst the sea of blood-colored flames, the sun slowly sank into the painting, forming a majestic blood-red color there. It took an hour for the sun to completely sink. At the same time, Venus and Mars became embedded in the painting. With flakes of nitrogen and ammonia snow falling on Pluto, the two-dimensional claws swallowed the largest Jupiter. Extending towards Pluto, at this moment Luo Ji ordered the two of them to quickly escape in the Xinghuan spacecraft. But he chose to stay where he was. The wake of Xinghuan crossed through space, as Qing Xin and AA in the spacecraft looked back at the solar system. The scene before them was extremely shocking. It was truly a painting called Starry Sky. When Qing Xin, feeling that she was dying, wanted to throw away the belongings of the spacecraft into space, Luo Ji contacted them through the information window and revealed the shocking news about the Xinghuan spacecraft. Xinghuan has the world's only set of warp drive engines, making it a spacecraft capable of traveling at the speed of light. Additionally, it can use gravitational waves to communicate with the crews of the human spacecraft Gravity and Blue Space. Qing Xin finally learned that the outcomes of all this were entirely due to the unwavering will of Thomas Wade. 35 years after Thomas Wade's death, on Mercury, in the crater opened by Wallfacer Ray Diaz, a secret base was built according to Wade's will, and the production of the warp drive engine was successful. After hearing all this, Qing Xin wanted to return to Pluto to pick up Luo Ji, but he firmly refused. This old man, who had defended the Earth for over 3 centuries, devoted the last embers of his life to the remnants of human civilization. From Wallfacer to Swordholder, he dedicated his entire life to the world. From Swordholder to the Guardian of the Tomb, he chose to end his life in this way. This is the choice of a savior. Following Luo Ji's order, Xinghuan activated the warp drive engine and began moving swiftly through space. It is important to mention that many people attempted to escape the solar system in spacecraft with conventional propulsion, but that proved impossible. When they saw the space behind Xinghuan distorting, they realized it was a spacecraft accelerated to the speed of light. Some of them, nearly driven to madness, wanted to intercept it, while others sought to destroy it. However, Xinghuan was nearing the speed of light, and they couldn't keep up at all. Along Xinghuan's trajectory, space-time warped in a way that caused the speed of light to decrease. The region formed by this path is known as the Black Area. It was only then that Qing Xin realized that if enough warp-drive spacecraft were produced, the solar system could be enveloped in a black field. This is a statement of cosmic security. This meant that whether traveling in outer space or enjoying the beautiful nature of the solar system, humans were all in their place. It was the only way for humans to survive, but it was their overflowing fraternity that pushed the world into the abyss. Qing Xin, like a Virgin Mary, was fortunate to encounter many real men in her life. From Yun Tianming to Thomas Wade and Luo Ji at this moment, they cared for her as if they were her lovers or protected her as if they were her own mother. They protected the human nature she represented. Finally, with the disappearance of Luo Ji's image, a giant two-dimensional painting called the solar system was completed. Qing Xian suddenly remembered that she still had a date, and she said, "Let's go to our star." At this moment, the two girls, who were outside the picture, were flying toward a star, which was a promise. That was their star, and there was a man out there. However, what awaited them there was the truth of the universe that is darker than the dark forest. Year 409 of the galactic era. In the past 286 Earth years, the speed of light has distorted spacetime, causing the two girls from Xinghuan to feel that it took them 52 hours to reach the DX3906 star system. This is a star very close in size to the Sun. Its two planets are called Gray Planet and Blue Planet due to the colors of their surfaces. When the fusion-powered Xinghuan spacecraft approached the surface of the Blue Planet, Qing Xian and AA discovered that, unlike Earth, the blue color of the Blue Planet did not come from its water system, but from the color of the plants covering the planet's surface. When Xinghuan landed on the Blue Planet, a man had been waiting here for a long time. This time, Qing Xian didn't get what she wanted. It wasn't Yun Tianming, but Guan Yifan, the cosmic observer from gravity who had experienced navigation in 4 dimensions. In the beautiful blue star, Guan Yifan told the two why he had been waiting here. They received signals from Xinghuan, and he spoke of his past. After they sent gravitational waves in that year, gravity in blue space embarked on a long interstellar journey. They also obtained faster-than-light spacecraft technology. During this period, they explored countless planets and witnessed numerous civilizations, including the Blue Planet. Although the natural environment of the Blue Planet is good, it is located on a busy route in the universe. There are often passing alien civilizations, so the human fleet did not settle here but chose to go to the other 4 worlds to open up wastelands. During the long interstellar journey, they learned that the second Trisolaris fleet had been reduced to dust in a tragic interstellar battle in the Taurus zodiac constellation 60 years ago. The whereabouts of the first fleet, where Yun Tianming was, remained unknown. After discussing the past, the 3 of them decided to leave this dangerous planet one day later to join other humans in the galaxy. In this brief night, A fell in love with Guan Yifan, but Qing Xian missed Yun Tianming in her heart. At midnight that day, Guan Yifan's surveillance satellite detected signs of extraterrestrial life activity on the Gray Planet. To determine if Yun Tianming was there, Qing Xian insisted on going to the Gray Planet with Guan Yifan to investigate, as it was possible that the Trisolaris fleet also received signals from Xinghuan. After a period of flight, the shuttle docked with the spaceship in synchronous orbit. It was in the shape of a tetrahedron. During the flight, over 6 centuries after Luoji fell into the icy lake on that cold night, Guan Yifan lifted the veil of darkness from the universe and revealed the bloody truth of the cosmos. If we use a world war as a metaphor for the competition between civilizations in the universe, then the dark forest is just a cold shot amidst battles. It's simply equivalent to a sniper shooting and killing a communication soldier or a cook who was accidentally revealed by the opposing side. In a true interstellar war, led by a civilization with infinitely advanced technology, the laws of the universe are the most powerful weapons. There are many universal laws that can be used as weapons, such as dimensional reduction or defending oneself by slowing down the speed of light, and so on. Taking the attack on the solar system as an example, the Singer's double vector sheet dimensional reduction attack is the superior method of attack. The terrifying aspect of dimensional reduction is that the two-dimensional fall never stops. This means that, sooner or later, the attacking party will also fall into 2 dimensions. Therefore, the dimensional reduction attack is a decision to die together. The only way to avoid this fate is to transform oneself into a low-dimensional life form. Once the transformation is successful, a wild dimensional reduction attack will be launched against the enemy. This is the ultimate fate of the ring civilization mentioned earlier, falling from 4 dimensions to 3 dimensions like a waterfall, and ultimately becoming a straight line. It is also the Singer's policy towards the solar system. Regarding the use of light speed as a weapon or the creation of a black area for hiding, etc., these are merely acts of naive civilizations, like insects. Those grand civilizations at the god level of warfare can arbitrarily create a low-speed black hole to seal the enemy. In those star-filled places, a large number of low-speed black holes merge into one. The Great Interstellar Wall has been forming for tens of millions of years. No matter how powerful the fleet is, once trapped, it can never escape. This cruel war is constantly unfolding among cosmic civilizations. One day, dimensional reduction will cause the 3rd dimension to completely disappear, and the universe will become entirely 2-dimensional. The attack and defense at light speed will cause the area of low light speed to continuously increase, and it may even produce a constant low light speed within the scope of the entire universe. These are just 2 laws. What is frightening is that it is highly possible that all laws have been weaponized, including the cornerstone of all laws, the laws of mathematics, which is the terrifying truth of the universe. Our universe bid farewell to the idyllic era of 10 dimensions long ago. The war is draining its grievances and turning it into a collapsed mummy. The universe is dying. Time passed after the conversation, and the spacecraft arrived at the Gray Planet, where the two were shocked to see the terrible traces left by the visitors. 5 dead lines. Gazing at the 5 black lines like black pillars, Guan Yifan speculates that it is highly likely that these black trajectory lines are caused by the super spaceships that instantly accelerate to the speed of light, the origin of the civilization of the Great God, the return to zero. Just like moving the clock hands past 12 o'clock, they aim to reduce the universe beyond zero dimension, to reset the universe, and thus achieve rebirth. The trail of the 5 black lines left by the Zero civilization comes from a super powerful warp drive, distorting space, where the speed of light inside is zero, meaning that once entered, it is difficult for anything to escape. The danger is that if these black lines encounter the space-time disturbance from other nearby warp tracks, they will rapidly propagate, forming a low-speed gravitational field vortex. To avoid being trapped, the two decided to quickly return to their journey and distance themselves from the gray planet using the fusion engine. On their way back, they received a call from AA because Yun Tianming had landed on the blue planet. It turned out that the first Trisolaran fleet had established a nearby colony. Upon detecting the gravitational wave signal from Xinghuan, Yun Tianming ran towards Qing Xian's direction. This was a long-awaited happiness. However, love and commitment spanning centuries did not come easily. Due to the disturbance caused by Yun Tianming's spacecraft entering this galaxy, the 5 dead lines quickly spread, and the low-speed vortex engulfed the Xinghuan spacecraft. Qing Xian and Guan Yifan fell into a dark and uncontrollable state, making it difficult to escape. To conserve oxygen, Guan Yifan and Qing Xian had to enter hibernation, and their fate could only be set in the automatically functioning neural computer operating at low light speed. This dream turned out to be a sea transforming into land, with time outside the spacecraft spinning rapidly, and hundreds of years passing by every second on the blue planet seen through the window. When Qing Xian woke up again, DX3906 had turned into a massive black hole with low light speed, and everything here was completely isolated from the rest of the universe. In the end, they were able to return to the blue planet thanks to the power of the antimatter engine. At this moment, there was no spacecraft or Yun Tianming on the blue planet. All the plants had turned purple, and according to radiometric dating, it was only then that Qing Xian realized that, in the 16 days since their return, over 18.9 million years had passed on the blue planet. After shedding tears of sorrow, Qing Xian never stopped searching for the traces left by Yun Tianming and AA. Finally, the detector found the speckled writing carved into the stone in the black rock formation. "We lived a happy life and gave you a small universe to escape the collapse." Upon seeing these words, Qing Xian felt immensely relieved. At that moment, a dimly lit door appeared before them. Stepping through it, the two arrived in a small universe beyond time. It was an idyllic world, with numerous column-shaped robots neatly aligned in the field. When Qing Xian saw a person walking from a house in the distance, she exclaimed that it was Sapan wearing a kimono. As the administrator of this place, Sapan informed the two that the vast universe was rapidly collapsing and would reach a singularity in 10 years. This would be followed by a great explosion, giving rise to a new universe. The small universe that Yun Tianming had left for them was constructed by the Trisolarans to avoid the collapse. After the joy of their reunion, they began a new life. It was here that Qing Xian wrote her memoirs. Remembrance of Earth's past. Guan Yifan felt a sense of unease regarding Trisolaran's theory of the universe because the mass of the universe had been lost. According to Trisolaran's theory, the total mass of the universe is extremely delicate and serves as the necessary guarantee for collapse and rebirth. Any loss of mass would lead to the opposite fate of the universe, expanding infinitely until its ultimate demise. Clearly, the small universe they found themselves in had stolen a portion of mass from the grand universe. And among the countless cosmic civilizations, there are many, many such small universes. Indeed, not long after, the large group of god-level civilizations, similar to the Return Zero faction, issued a declaration to the entire universe in the language of 1.57 million civilizations, the Declaration of the Return Movement. It stated that the total mass of our universe had fallen below the critical value, and the universe would transition from a closed state to an open one. The universe would die in eternal expansion, all life and memories would perish. They demanded the return of the stolen mass, only allowing the transmission of memories to the new universe. Faced with this declaration, Qing Xian, who had shouldered great responsibilities throughout her lifetime, finally made the decision to return the small universe. This meant that the three of them would end their lives at the end of the universe. Only memories would remain in the drifting bottle, engraved with the imprints of Trisolaran civilizations and Earth, escaping the collapse and heading towards the new grand universe. In the final moments before departure, to bring a touch of life to that pre-universe, Qing Xian carefully left behind an additional 5 kilograms of ecological balls containing tiny lives of small fish and aquatic plants. Sapan piloted the spaceship, carrying Qing Xian and Guan Yifan through the door of the universe. They finally embraced death. And in the small universe, the drifting bottle and the leaping fish carried all the past events of Earth, awaiting a new cosmic reincarnation. End of the book.